February 22nd, 2015. First stock I want to look at is Tesla. Tesla had a nice rally this week, bouncing solidly off of 200. You can see this little base that we had in here off that earnings gap down, and then you broke out to the upside, made up the gap down from earnings, and now Tesla, is coming up on some key resistance between 220 and 225 right in here, and then also from late December. But if you can stay up here and break out above that 225 area, then I don't see much resistance on Tesla until the 250 to 260 range. You may recall last week we looked at a weekly chart of Tesla. I'm not going to pull it up again. I'll just refresh your memory. We have this long-term channel over the last year between 200 and 260 with a brief move above 260 back in late August, early September, and brief moves below 200 that we've seen to start this year in January, and then again most recently a couple weeks ago off earnings. So now we're getting a channel bounce off of this 200 level, and that's where, if we clear 225, to me the next move would be up towards channel resistance up at 250 towards 260. The other thing I like about Tesla, we've seen some speed come back into this thing. Volume, we had two back-to-back above average volume days, and on 2 green days. You haven't had 2 back-to-back green days with above average volume since the middle part of December, when coincidentally enough you were bouncing off of $200 and ended up getting up towards 230. So Tesla will be on watch here as one of the more active names. Kind of lagged behind Netflix and Amazon with the moves they've been making recently, but now maybe trying to play some catch up. I want to look at Priceline. Priceline with a big move up this week on earnings. Stock entered the week around $1,100, and you can see this big gap up going from $1,130 to $1,220, and now basing above this downtrend line. And I want to go back a little bit of ways just to show you how relevant this downtrend line has been. So this is drawn from the all-time high put in last February, and you can see it capped the stock in August, and that was really the last touch. Got close to it in August 2014, backed away. Then though you came up to it, towards it in October, backed away hard from it, came up towards it in December. It really even didn't get that close, and got rejected short below it. So now here we are, and you can see 2 days in a row now it's right at 1200. What's interesting to me about Priceline personally from an intraday perspective is we had a huge move, right? But you didn't have a huge move on an intraday basis. If you look at the last 2 days, you will see a open to close range that is very, very tight. Open to close is what I refer to kind of judge intraday trading, and what that range is, it is what it sounds like. You take the open and you take the close. How much range is there? So you look at the open to close range. On Thursday you opened at 219, you closed at 218. So a $1 open to close range on Priceline, that's extremely tight. Friday you opened at 1217, you closed 1216. Again, a $1 range. I understand that there's movement happening, but in terms of being a directional trader looking for sustained movement, while we got a great move overnight and pre-market from earnings, we have not yet gotten a great move intraday on Priceline. You compare that to something like Tesla's last 2 days. You look at Tesla Thursday, opened 205, closed 211. You're talking about a 3% open to close range. And then Friday you opened 209, closed 217. Again, a 3% plus open to close range. If Priceline was to give us, a 2% open to close range one day this week, we're talking about a 24-point move that you can catch at least. So that's the main thing I'm watching for on Priceline here, is can we get some improvement in this open to close range on the stock? And if that happens, then I think we could see good continuation to the upside. Psychologically, I like the setup because we're above this $1,200 mark, and now I'm bullish on Priceline as long as you are staying above 1,200. Anything above 1,200 has me looking for upside on Priceline. If you go below 1,200, that's where we can get into a gap fill back down towards 1180s on down towards 1130s. Really just kind of depends. But so Priceline, big move off the gap, or big move due to the gap, but not yet a big move on an intraday basis. I'll be looking for some continuation like that on Priceline. Looking at Twitter, Twitter here continues to kind of flag up. Thought it might go towards 50, get above $50 this last week, and it didn't do it. And I like Twitter. I'm bullish on it overall, but I was a little disappointed that you couldn't get a move up towards 50 last week. Sorry, you did get a move up towards 50. You couldn't get a move above 50. So don't jump the gun on Twitter is what I'm thinking. Wait till we see a sustained hold on a move, because again, similar to Priceline, the open to close ranges on Twitter haven't been that great since earnings. You've had some volatility, but it's kind of been wishy-washy. You look, earnings, it closed at 48, the high was 48.50. So we really haven't gotten a secondary move off of earnings. We're only about 1.25% higher above the earnings day high of 48.50. So still waiting on a solid break above this earnings day high. I know we're above it. So, just want to keep seeing it stay above it in order to target higher prices, but need a kind of a fat candle with a breakout and clean breakaway above 48.50, where we're really getting some continuation to look for that next big time move on Twitter. On the support side, you're kind of in a channel here until you can break down below $46. Not really expecting downside on Twitter until or unless you broke below 46. So keep an eye on it. Wanted to mention Twitter because I feel like a lot of people are watching this thing for a $50 breakout. Two names that aren't participating or haven't really participated in market upside. First is GoPro. GoPro had an interesting week because it bounced off of 45, got up near 50, but then got sent right back down to 45, and you are testing it again here. So GoPro, couldn't hold the bounce at all, and if you start holding below 45, I think GoPro could be pretty vulnerable to a move back towards 42 to 40 and maybe even going into the 40s. No bottom on GoPro until it can get above 50 and hold above 50. GoPro's been a great short trade over the last few months. This week when we had, this day on the 17th, you closed at 50, I think a lot of people, myself included, thought, okay, maybe this is the bottom here, but then you came right back down right away, and, certainly can't say that there's a bottom in place. Another one, no participation to the upside, or at least not in a clean manner, is Google. These two trend lines, by the way, are parallel, in case you were wondering. I just copied this one here and put it down here at this low. You can see we're trying to break below it. But anyways, Google's another one that, it's bounced a little bit off of earnings, but you couldn't hold the move above this 550 resistance. And that's kind of been a problem for Google so far this year and even the latter part of last year, just unable to really get a clean hold above 550. And until that happens, Google's going to be vulnerable to a move back down towards 520. So need to see Google get back above 550 in order to really start looking for upside momentum. She has been the ultimate tease. Google's like the popular girl that can't decide who she wants to go to the dance with, if she wants to break out or break down. So I personally will be watching Google to sell premium on, because she really doesn't have much of a trend right now. It's just been going back and forth. So those were the names I wanted to cover specifically. And now I want to talk about greed. Greed in the marketplace, greed with our trading, whatever you want, however you want to distinguish it. I've got a little write-up here that I'll throw on the screen for note-taking purposes, so you can kind of follow along with what I'm talking about. But so first of all, what sparked this? Well, had a member that seems to still be struggling with some execution, staying in trades too long, wanting to squeeze out more gains, maybe not getting in when they should, all that stuff. And on paper, these all seem like simple things to correct. Okay, well, if you're staying in too long, just get out quicker. If you're not getting in quick enough, then place your buy order first. And we always try and put things in the context of trading and how can we address it trading wise. And I think sometimes that can be a mistake. And this is one of those cases. Greed is the biggest challenge all traders face. To me, there are two types of greed that you're going to interact with as a trader. There's fearful greed and there's excited greed. Fearful greed is when your approach to trading is influenced by fear in an overprotective manner. You're greedy out of fear and you actually do things defensively that may not seem greedy, but really they are. Excited greed is the obvious one. Your approach to trading is influenced by excitement in an over-aggressive manner. That's the obvious one as far as you're in a winning position, right? You're in a winning position, but you stay in even though you should be exiting because you just want to sell it a little bit higher. Or you trade a stock that's not moving because you have envisioned a grand move is set to take place even though there's no evidence to support your theory, and you get all excited and you put in 10 G's because you're like, man, I'm going to make 20 G's off this and this is going to be my big score, right? That's the obvious one. We all recognize excited greed, I think. The less obvious one, and possibly the more important one, is fearful greed. So this is something like when a stock is approaching an area that you liked for an entry, but you decide to see if you can get in a little bit lower. So, you had your order placed to buy in, but you cancel it once it's getting close to filling and lower it to try and get in lower, get that perfect entry, that greedy entry, and then it ends up bouncing right where you would have bought in the first place, and now you're left without a position, and then you chase and it messes everything up. Or maybe you exit a position right away because you just want a winning trade, right? How many times have you made a couple bad trades in a row, you're down 200, 300 bucks, and you then all of a sudden get in a trade that goes up 10% and you're up 200, 300 bucks, and you sell it right away simply to match the loss that you had. That is greed out of fear. You were so fearful of being down on a day that as soon as you got back to break even, you exited the trade even though it maybe might have made sense to stay in that trade. Or you're down on a position, and this is the one we have all done and new traders do, and it's going to kill them until they stop doing it. They enter a position, it's a losing position, but they stay in it because as soon as they sell, it's going to go back up. Yeah, I'm here to tell you now, if I see you in chat saying Apple went up as soon as I sold, of course. Man, LinkedIn bounced as soon as I exited. That always happens. You're an idiot. you're a dumbass. I don't mean to insult you, but I'm just keeping it real, and somebody needs to tell it like it is. That's not happening. It's just a frickin' coincidence. Nothing pisses me off more than when I see people saying this, and they're convinced that as soon as I sell, it's going to go up. All right, well, why don't you stay in and lose another 50% and then talk to me? That is fearful greed. You are being greedy out of fear. That 5-10% loss you could take is going to feel a hell of a lot better than the 40, 50, 60% loss you will end up taking. So now that we have identified these two elements of fear, I want you to be able to know if these types of of greed, I want you to know if these types of greed are holding back your trading. How do you know? Well, you answer this question honestly and objectively. Are you satisfied with the way you traded last week? Are you satisfied with the way you traded last month, last year, etc.? Answer that question. Really answer it honestly. And if you aren't satisfied, then chances are greed played a role in that. Maybe you kept selling too early. Maybe you forced a bunch of trades. Maybe you stayed in losing trades too long. Whatever it is, chances are when you really give some critical thought to how am I feeling about my performance, you will remember trades that were influenced by greed. Whatever the reason, non-satisfactory execution can always be traced back to an element of greed, be it fearful or excitement. Now, what's interesting about greed in the trading environment is we naturally try to overcome it by looking around that very same environment. Meaning we stay in the trading environment itself in terms of addressing our problems with greed. We think up different approaches. Oh, I'm going to start scalp trading. Oh, I'm going to start day trading. Oh, I'm going to start swing trading. Oh, I'm going to stop trading on Fridays. We think about these different rules, different whatever, all in the hopes of changing the way we approach trading for the better. And that's all well and good. But the problem is it's focused on the wrong target. I'm not saying you shouldn't be evaluating your trading and analyzing ways you can avoid mistakes and put yourself in better situations. What I am saying, though, is that's not where it starts and that's not where it ends. You didn't start suffering from greed once you started trading. You didn't start suffering from greed once you started trading. Trading is simply the magnifying glass of all greedy characteristics. But in reality, your problems with greed stem from how you have lived your life every single day before you even started trading and opened your platform. Guys, this is something you have to think about. My trading did not start improving until I started thinking about it this way, until I started looking outside my platform, looking around my daily life, and noticing things I could be doing differently. The way to become less greedy as a trader is to manipulate your everyday life to reduce greedy moments. So how do we do that? Well, I've got a lot of broad ways you can become less greedy in your everyday life that will help you. Okay, first of all, volunteer. Me personally, I've been a Big Brother mentor to the same kid for over 7 years, and it feels good. And helping people who really need your help will make you feel grateful. And maybe you'll remember that feeling of grace the next time you have a 20% gain staring you in the face. Maybe you'll be grateful for that gain instead of wanting it to be a 25% gain. Do things you don't want to do. Do things you don't want to do. Today, true story, I went to church with my girlfriend. I am not religious at all. I was not raised religious, any of that. But I know my girlfriend's religious, and I know how happy she gets when I go to church with her. It's the dumbest thing. But all I need to do is just sit there for an hour and pretend to be enjoying myself, and she loves it. It shouldn't be hard to think of things you don't want to do and start doing them. And it doesn't necessarily have to be for other people. I'm just sharing my personal ideas. This one, to me, is important and often maybe kind of laughed at, but it shouldn't go underrated. Get to know your parents and your loved ones. Having strong relationships with the people who know you the best and raised you will help you to understand how you have become the person you are today. 2-3 years ago, I did things that I really didn't understand. Well, I've spent the last few years getting to know my father on a personal level, and for better or for worse, I understand some of the things I start doing now. and same with my grandparents. You know, I see how I have become the person I am because I have learned more about them, and things make more sense just in terms of the way I process situations and whatnot. Challenge yourself with recreational activity, whether it be a new workout routine at the gym, reading a book, learning a new language or skill. There are so many different ways you can challenge yourself. And by getting out of your comfort zone with new challenges, it will help you advance as a trader. One of the things for me, I'll give you some examples. I used to never sell premium. I used to always be scared of selling premium. It was completely new for me. I only observed the risks of it. Well, about 4 or 5 months ago, I started selling premium, and it's actually become more profitable a strategy for me than owning premium. Well, one of the things I also started doing around that same time, looking back, is I started shooting 100 free throws a night a couple times a week, trying to make 100 free throws in a row. I had never done that. I've played basketball my whole life, and for the record, I've never made the 100 in a row. The best I've done is 95 out of 100. But the point is, I don't know why I never tried to shoot 100 in a row. You know, I think maybe it's because I would always get so pissed if I didn't make 100 in a row. But I learned that, hey, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'll have fun. And if I don't make 100 in a row, I'm not going to be all pissed off. You know, I'll see how well I can do. And it kind of, I think, helped me start to sell premium because it's the same thing. You know what? If it doesn't work, I'll still try and have fun, and we'll see where it goes. So challenge yourself with a new recreational activity or by making adjustments to an existing recreational activity. If you're benching 225 10 times, try and bench 235 10 times. You know, simple things. This next one's important. Discipline your lifestyle. Discipline your lifestyle. If you go out to eat 2 times per week, start only going out to eat once per week. If you drink or smoke every weekend, start doing it every other weekend. If you spend money shopping each month, cut the amount in half for 6 months. This shouldn't be hard to figure out areas of your lifestyle you could discipline. Maybe you want to lose 10 pounds, maybe you want to add 10 pounds, maybe you want to eat better, maybe you want to wake up earlier, maybe you want to go to sleep earlier. Whatever it is, we all have areas in our life that we can discipline if we really try. And by introducing more discipline to your lifestyle, it'll be easier to introduce more discipline to your trading habits. Lastly, do something that scares you or makes you uncomfortable. This is kind of similar to challenging yourself with a recreational activity, but it's a little bit different. And, without putting your life in danger, some of the ideas I have: go skydiving, go skiing, take a trip somewhere exotic if you're afraid of flying, watch a scary movie, swim in the ocean, drive to the middle, and I've done this one, and this one's a good one. I'll tell you right now. Drive to the middle of nowhere with a friend at night, turn off your headlights, and get out of your car. Do that. I go up to the middle of nowhere in Michigan a couple times a year, and I did that this last summer. That shit was creepy. Okay? So that's just one of the ones I've done. It's the only one in this list I've done that I'm actually scared of. But, you do something scary, it adds an element of risk. You feel it in your stomach when you're doing it. And at the end of the day, that's what trading is about. It's about taking new risks, learning to become comfortable with something new and accepting that risk, accepting that fear, and nullifying that fear, and realizing that, hey, I'm really okay. I'm standing out here in a cornfield with no lights, and nobody's popped out of the cornfield with a knife and killed me yet. And that's really what trading is in a lot of ways. People start trading, and you make a couple trades, and you look, and you say, hey, well, Started with $1,000. I've only got 900, or now I've got 1,100. This really isn't that hard. Not that bad. So you need to figure out ways to improve your trading outside of market hours. That's the bottom line. I had a quote this weekend on my Twitter. I said, I believe I have improved more due to my approach on Saturday and Sunday than my approach on Monday through Friday. And what that means is my improvement in trading is coming from this list of things. Things I'm doing on the weekend that are subconsciously going to help me during the week when I'm executing my trades. Ignore these at your own risk. Laugh at them, brush them off. Go about it a different way. Do whatever you want. If you want to make your life easier as a trader, you'll start doing some of these. And it's not hard to figure out what to do. It's not hard to find somewhere to volunteer. It's not hard to figure out things you don't want to do and start doing them. I'm not saying change your life. I'm just saying evaluate your life, look at it, figure out little things you can introduce, because do not underestimate how those changes in your life will start to show up as positive changes in your trading. Alright guys, so that's what I had for us on this topic.